the Kevin rule of the one complaint a day rule. One complaint a day. Now, the average human complains internally and externally, internally too, right? Over 100 times a day. And if you start counting, you will find that you complain over 100 times a day. Oh, I don't like this outfit. Oh, I don't like the mic. Oh, I don't like this podcast. Oh, I don't like the way I feel today. Oh, I ate too much. Oh, I drank too much. Oh, my knees hurt. Oh, just go down the line, right? You're going to have one complaint for the entire day. So if you get up and you forget the rule and you go, oh, my knees hurt from, you've already used your one complaint for the entire day. And you find out that you get to look at every task and everything that hits you during the day and decide if there's something to learn from it, if there's something positive about it, or if you're going to treat it as a negative. You choose that. And if you always choose the positive, you're going to be a lot more successful.
This is Grownlearn. My name is Zorina, and my guest today is very high fly. He has more than 94 patents. He's an innovator, top 10 speaker in the US. Kevin Surace, welcome.
Welcome indeed. Thanks for having me.
I left intentionally the long introduction because there's so much to talk about, your background and how much you've achieved and all the platforms you've participated in and propelled forward. So I'd rather have us touch on these points while having the conversation. I know that you're one of the fathers of AI. Basically, you're the first one who started a virtual assistant from which AI developed. And you like to have fun along the way. So
I do.
Yes. Is this the secret to your innovation?
Look, there's people a lot smarter than I am and a lot more successful, but I think people have asked me, how do you get to 95 patents and how do you keep finding problems to solve and how do you participate in so many different fields? I'm running two companies, a cybersecurity company, an AI company. I've got my own keynote business, which is 30 to 40 keynotes a year, so I'm very busy with that. I've written a book, and then I am very active in Broadway, stage shows, touring shows, and creating film as well. So I'm a creator producer. I'm a music director. I've directed some 60 different shows. So I'm busy.
Okay.
That's
really
what some of those are behind me. So
incredible.
Someone said write it down.
Not even in your bio. Oh my God, this is fascinating. Yeah.
So someone said write it all down, and what I began to do is write down what I do different. What do I do differently during the day? How do I act differently? What is different about my life than so many other people? I am not smarter. There are people, trust me, far smarter than I am, and like I said, more accomplished. So then you go, all right, what am I doing differently? Well, I lead with joy. I lead my companies with joy. I lead my teams with joy, and I lead my life with joy. Every task that I write down that's on my to-do list today, I find joy in. I find joy in doing this podcast. I just did a 2-hour podcast right before this. I found joy in that. So this is the 3rd hour of podcast. I'm going to find equal joy, maybe more joy. And really, I began writing this down to become a book called The Joy Success Cycle. It comes out in the fall of 2026. And it lays out a methodology to change your life and change your business. And if you act this way, your business will be more successful. You will be more successful in your career, in your life, at home. I mean, it changes everything. And when you're yourself, you don't realize that you're different. I mean, we're all different, but you know what I'm saying. You go, well, I'm just going through my life. This is how I live my life. But when you start writing it down and then delivering that as keynotes, you start talking to people about it. They go, that's completely the opposite of the way I live. I had no idea. So I'll give you an example. One example is the Kevin rule of the one complaint a day rule. One complaint a day. Now, the average human complains internally and externally, internally too, right? Over 100 times a day. And if you start counting, you will find that you complain over 100 times a day. Oh, I don't like this outfit. Oh, I don't like the mic. Oh, I don't like this podcast. Oh, I don't like the way I feel today. Oh, I ate too much. Oh, I drank too much. Oh, my knees hurt. Just go down the line, right? We manage to find everything to complain about because humans are notoriously negative by nature. And that's because our ancestors were scared and negative and worried because the lion was going to eat them, right? So we're, those are our predecessors, and here we are. The ones who were happy-go-lucky then got eaten. So we're not around from them. So once you count that up one day, then the next day I say when you get up, you're going to have one complaint for the entire day. So if you get up and you forget the rule and you go, oh, my knees hurt from, you've already used your one complaint for the entire day. You're done for the entire day. And now you have to go through the day and you force yourself. You go, I could complain about the weather. I could complain about the way I feel. I could complain about something. I'm not going to. It's not going to benefit me. And you find out that you get to look at every task and everything that hits you during the day and decide if there's something to learn from it, if there's something positive about it, or if you're going to treat it as a negative. You choose that. And if you always choose the positive, you're going to be a lot more successful. I mean, that's one simple rule from a 200-page book.
It's a very creative way to also reinforce constant self-observation, like self-awareness throughout the day, if you follow
Absolutely.
it. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So is there anything else you'd like to share about the book? Because there's a lot about AI that you also talk about and that your career has revolved around.
Well, because I'm known as the father of the AI assistant and voice AI and all of that, of course, a lot of my keynotes are just on AI and its impact on business, right? I happen to think the Joyce Success Cycle is more important now in the age of AI than it would have been beforehand. Because with AI, a lot of people are feeling scared, anxious, or they feel their career is over. They feel that they've lost their sense of purpose. So I'll give an example. A coder 3, 4, or 5 months ago maybe could have gotten AI to code 30 or 40 or 50% of an application, but they had a lot of work to do as a human, right? And once Claude 4.6 and now 4.7 hit, you could get it to do very long efforts. And so you could describe a front end and a back end system to code, and it will work on it for hours and hours, and it'll write 20,000 lines of code, and it's done, and it works. It's done. It wrote 100% of the application. And so that coder wrote quite a nice essay on this, actually. Says to himself, I thought that my sense of purpose, my sense of being, my very sense of being was to write code because I was such a good writer of code. And now there's a machine that outwrites me 100 to 1. There's no comparison, right? It's 100 times faster or 1,000 times faster. And he was feeling he lost his sense of purpose. And my response to that is we're going to shift our sense of purpose from the doing of these individual tasks to the outcome. Because in the outcome, we're going to use our taste and our experience to deliver a wonderful offering or product or whatever it is to the users of that product, right? Users of that output. And actually, that's all the users ever wanted. They always wanted it faster, they wanted it better, and they wanted it cheaper. And now you can deliver that. But they only ever cared about the outcome. They never cared about the entire day you struggled on one bug. They could care less about that. They don't want to know about it, actually. This is true with Hollywood, it's true with music, it's true with blog posts, it's true with the way you're going to potentially summarize this podcast. They don't care if AI summarizes or you summarize. They don't care. They care there is a summary, there's some high points, and it shows up on social media. They don't care how you got there. No one ever cared how you got there, actually, as it turns out. So as humans, we've got to shift our thinking from it's the process of getting there to it's actually getting there and then using my experience and taste to deliver and fine-tune the product for the end user.
I see. Well, my previous guest was also speaking on AI and touched on the same point of coders being the first ones to go because they're the data available for AI to be trained on was very well documented by coders.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not. Here's the interesting thing. We are not seeing en masse people lay off their coders. Even though AI can write 100% of the code. So why is that? Why aren't we just dumping developers left and right? Don't need them. This is right. Here's the reason. Every company has a backlog of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of bugs and feature requests that they thought they'd never get to. And now they can. So in fact, they're taking their existing development group, and what used to take a month or 2 weeks, maybe they can do in a couple of days. Let's just say. So now they can accelerate and move 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 times faster across the organization, which is what they always wanted to do but couldn't afford. So it's not like you've got companies that have no backlog of features, offerings, bugs, no Jira tickets. They all have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. So now they're actually accelerating at a rate that they always wanted to go and couldn't afford to go. So nobody's letting these people go. Now, they may not be hiring as fast. They may not be trying to hire as fast, but we are also into an era where there are less people coming out of college because the birth rate fell 20 years ago, and people are retiring faster than they're coming into the workforce. So there are less people to hire no matter what. So actually AI came at a very, very good time when it's going to save us instead of hurt us.
Well, I've been having, as I said, quite a few conversations, and one of the very interesting ones that was not on the podcast, just with a personal friend of mine, was around neuroscience and the way, of course, human mind partially degrades if it's not being trained in a specific way, but it is,
right.
Giving away the tasks, the tasks that it would usually do, like logical tasks, to AI. But then it's not being trained as an interface between AI and the outcome, as what you're saying, the final outcome. So what do you think we as people would need to change in terms of our neurology perception, in order not to degrade and completely reverse evolution?
When is the last time you did complex long division in your head?
Not so long ago, because I have a son who's currently studying that.
Okay.
But yes.
Aside from teaching your son and trying to teach that, when's the last time you did it? When you were in school? Right.
Long ago. I'm not revealing my age.
Okay. So here's the point. We stopped doing math across the world when Excel came out in 1989. Finance stopped doing math. No one in finance does math. There's a machine that does math. We actually gave up doing math, and these same arguments were made then. Well, if we don't use that, we will lose the ability to do math. We will lose the ability to do long division. Yeah, most of humanity has lost the ability to do long division because a machine does it. You cannot add value to your company or your life by doing long division in your head. You could fine-tune some interesting part of the brain that can do long division, but no one wants your outcome at all because it's a machine that does it in a second. We don't want that output. Now we've done the same to language. We're doing that in language, right? We're doing that in creating content. And that means we're going to get more strategic about that content. We're going to be more thoughtful about the outcome. We're going to be able to spend a lot more time on the output than before we ran out of time. It's like, oh my goodness, I've got to turn this in at 5 o'clock, and you write the last sentence and you go. And if you had another 8 hours, you really, really would have fine-tuned it. You really would have fine-tuned your thought. You never had that time. Now all your time is spent on that. So for instance, when I respond to press inquiries, which are almost daily, my response, I opine in 2 or 3 paragraphs with near gibberish, but it's English, but it's not well formed. And I said, here are the questions. Here's my thinking about this topic, and take my thinking and put it into 2 sentences that are quotable by the press for each of these questions. AI is fabulous at that. It's an English major. I'm not. So if you notice, I'm using AI in a really specific way, and I do this all the time. Like, I will get a spreadsheet, has a ton of tabs on it. I go, I add no value in trying to evaluate the strategery of the outcome of the spreadsheet, right? The strategic outcome of that spreadsheet. So instead, what I want to do is feed that to AI. Let AI tell me what are the 10 biggest impacts on my business, or what is the spreadsheet telling me? And then I can say, how do I go forward with this? How can I change my business? Do I have the wrong person, the wrong role? There's all kinds of things that come out of this. And I added no value to thinking there and trying to find through the numbers and charts. And so it's all how you use AI. And if you use it wrong as a crutch, as a total crutch, you will lose the ability to critically think. If you use it to develop 10 times more content output analysis than you've ever had, and then you're reading all that and you're analyzing it, you sharpen your mind. So it all depends on how you want to use the tools.
Okay, fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about your other passions outside of AI and outside of the book and bringing joy to people in everything they do. Tell us a bit about your producing business. What do you do there?
So I'm a partner in a company called Wits End Productions. We are a Tony Award winning production company that mostly develops product for the stage and for film. Our last two films, one is called 1660 Vine. It's a musical about influencers. The one before that is a holiday musical film called Estella Scrooge. We're working on this beautiful documentary right now about really about the Holocaust, and separately, unrelated, a musical also about the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. These are very, very interesting stories that people want to tell, and those are our products. We've got a great product called Dark of the Moon that is our product. It opens at Charing Cross in London at the end of May 2026. So that's exciting. That'll play throughout 2026. We got another show called The Hawaiian Goddess that opens in Hawaii and Oahu later this year. Those are our products. We developed those products. We hired the teams. They're incredibly smart teams. I don't want to take anything away from the writers and the creators, right? And sometimes we're the creator. I'm a creator. I'm writing another musical called Love in the Key of AI. So you can imagine what that is. So we do get to create, and sometimes we win awards. I've won a lot of awards for stage and film, and many times I don't. Or we don't. But I do love that part of my life. My dad said I could not go to school for film or stage. It had to be engineering, and I happen to be good at engineering and coding, so that's what I went to school for. But almost day one, I got to also continue my work in theater. I even ran a theater in Northern California for many years. An interesting side story is that theater called Sunnyvale Community Players. That theater was founded by Steve Wozniak's mom. Steve Wozniak was the co-founder of Apple with Steve Jobs. His mom founded a theater in 1969, and that theater is ongoing and positive and doing great today. And we've had many amazing stars as kids come through there that have now gone on to Broadway or West End, and they were my students. And we did junior and we did adult productions, but I got to run a theater as the artistic director for many years. So you really learn all the aspects from lighting to sound to really everything, and so people ask me a little bit about how do you manage an orchestra, for example, when you're doing this, and I say, look, you have to bring EQ to the job just like you would if you were a CEO. If you're a good CEO, you're trying to rise people up and you want them to follow you because you're a high integrity and you're transparent and you're all the things you want a real leader to be. And we don't always have real leaders today. And I bring that to my orchestras as well. And we have a lot of fun, but we work really hard and the bar is really high. And we produce some really amazing work. So I've gotten to music direct so many shows from West Side Story to Shrek to Camelot. I mean, it's just amazing. And probably all of the major Broadway shows, at least traditional shows, I've gotten to music direct at least one time or direct part of it or whatever. So anyway, really fun stuff. And And, we could talk a lot about the business of Broadway, which is super interesting right now. So I'll just touch on that. Is the cost of producing a Broadway show today, a big musical, is about $23 million up front. And the chance of you getting your money back might be 1 in 20 or 1 in 30 right now, maybe 1 in 40. It's not great.
So why are there still producers investing in Broadway shows if that's the result?
Well, for us, if we're creating the product, we have a sort of a different level of monetary enhancement, But if you're just a money producer, meaning that you just wrote a check and you've got the title of producer, co-producer, or whatever, it is hard to get your money back until you hit a Hamilton, and then you're going to make 1,000 times your money or 100 times your money, right? So one Hamilton pays for all the mistakes of all the other ones you invested in that were probably great shows, but a show doesn't break even until it runs for 1 to 2 years, some of them 3 years. It doesn't even break even, right? Loses, you lose the money. So it's a really fascinating business. Most people invest in Broadway shows, one, because they love Broadway. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. Two, they recognize it's a high risk, situation. But three, they know if you put $10,000 into Hamilton, you're going to get $10,000 a month for life. So that there is this opportunity to actually hit one out of the park. It's kind of like a lottery ticket. And if you do hit the lottery ticket, well, then it was worth all the 20 that you lost money on. And that's how you sort of have to play that game. But it is that kind of investment. For us creating art, we just want to create art. We want to write it, we want to create it, we want to direct it. And so when you're either the lead producer, which I often am, and Wits End often is, or if you're a creator, because I'm also a creator, so I could produce and create at the same time, it's about creating art that people on the other side are going to love. And by the way, this is no different than having a company. When you have a company and you've started a company, you need to produce a product that people love so much they want to pay for it. You've actually solved a pain point for them they're willing to pay for. And so often we're creating stuff because we think it's so cool, but they don't want to pay for it. And this is true, very true, with art. We create art that we've all seen it, and you go, that's interesting, but who would pay for that, right? I can think of some shows over the last year, I won't name them, that hit Broadway and they were gone in 30 days. And before it ever opened, I said, who's going to pay for that? No one wants that story. No one wants to even hear that story. No one wants that story in their life. Don't put it out there, right? Really fascinating. So art, as in business, you need to produce a product that people love and want to pay for, and maybe want to pay for over and over again. And when you do that, you're going to build a big business.
It's like in the VC industry waiting for the next unicorn. This is the same ratio of investment.
It's the same ratio, yeah. I mean, it's kind of maybe for a unicorn, maybe it's 1 out of 20 or 30 investments, right?
1 in 100.
Maybe, yeah. It's not. They're not big. But when you hit one, it pays for the entire fund and pays for the losses of the entire fund, and your LPs invest and get you to the next fund. It's what we do, and we know what those odds are. And of course, today things are a little crazy. The valuations. There's a company that's just 3 months old. I won't mention it. It's 3 months old. It's 3 good people, smart people who've left some other companies to start it. They don't have a product. They've got some ideas of what product they might make. They're worth $8 billion in their first round. $8 billion, but they have no product. They're a year or two away from a product. I'm not sure that's healthy at all. I don't know what to say about it. I think what Kozla said and a few others have said is, look, at this point, if it's a smart team, we just want in and we don't really care what the valuation is because we'll take a percentage and it'll work itself out in time. And so it used to be a seed round. Actually, before there used to be no seed rounds. If you go back enough time, it was an A round. That was the first thing. And your A round, in Silicon Valley, your pre-money valuation was somewhere between 2 and 5 million, and that's if you had a really good idea. Obviously, you didn't have a product yet, but you had a really good idea. Pre-money valuation, 2 to 5. That was pretty much standard. Who's going to invest in an idea that's worth more than 5 million? Today, they'll invest in an idea that's worth more than 5 billion.
Yeah.
with probably no better odds. Recent stat is about 5,000 in Silicon Valley. About 5,000 AI companies have been funded. 5,000. The number that will survive is probably survive and make any money, any return, right? I don't know, 100 maybe, right? The industry's not going to have room for more than that. And maybe I'm wrong and it's 200, but think of those numbers. And many of those 5,000 companies have already had a valuation over $1 billion. I know some that were at 3 and 4 billion and can't raise any more money. Think about that. Can't raise any more money. So the founder's going, I have 25% of $4 billion. I'm worth $1 billion. Then they go out to raise the next round. There is no money. You're only worth what someone's willing to put in. And there's no money because they didn't have a big enough moat around what they built. And then, the foundational model companies just built this as a simple feature or added it as a feature and wiped them out. Literally, this already happened to hundreds of companies with getting wiped out by foundational models just adding a feature. And a lot of stuff is heading towards commoditization. So I give you an example. I use 11 Labs. I love 11 Labs for the text-to-speech and speech-to-text technology that they have. It's very, very good. However, now you got foundational models like XAI just starting to add it, and Google just starting to add it. And it's every bit as good, and it's a tenth the cost. And so I think 11 will survive, and I think they'll do well. But there are now maybe 20 options or 30 options out there for speech generation, and they're all starting to be about as good. What do you do with that, right? How do you even value that, right? Who's going to make any money when everybody's trying to drive towards a zero cost game, right? And this may happen with foundational models. We've got 4 or maybe 5 that really matter. But is there room for 5? I mean, and they're all going to drive towards some price that is eventually going to be competitive towards zero. So, and none of them are making any money. I mean, OpenAI is talking about spending over $100 billion in the next 2 years on compute costs alone. $100 billion. Where are you going to raise that? I mean, they have raised it, but can you do it again? I don't know. It's at fascinating times from a venture perspective, right? And
yes, indeed. I mean, a lot of complicated questions on the backside of AI as well, with all the data centers and energy needs and the grid upgrades that is needed. You can go so deep as to the infrastructure in the US, for example, but also in Europe.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's actually right. When you add up, well, first of all, there's about $4 trillion of data centers that people have talked about building. Where does $4 trillion come from? It's one thing to talk about, it's another thing to build it. By the way, where do the plumbers come from and the contractors and the construction workers to build $4 trillion worth? Where do the chips come from? NVIDIA only? TSMC, they can't make that many. You just go down the line. So probably $4 trillion doesn't get built. And by the way, where does the power come from? We're talking about doubling the needs of electricity in the world in the next 5 years. Well, that's impossible. Not going to happen. It's impossible. Can't happen. Forget grid. There's not enough power plants. So how many power plants are you going to build? And now everybody's firing up nuclear again, which is fine. I'm just based on the science, I'm very, very positive on nuclear. But these were nuclear plants that we just shut down over the last 5 years, but didn't tear down. And everybody from Microsoft to Google went and said, we're parking next to this nuclear plant. We'll pay you to restart it. And they got to bring all the people back and restart. It should have never been shut down because...
Well, it's same thing in Germany. The whole Green Deal is practically bankrupting them.
Yeah, it was a mistake. Was it Germany that shut down most of the nuclear plants?
Yes.
And are they turning them back on now? Because that was a complete dumb idea.
I have no information, but I think eventually they will, because the renewable energy are accounting for, 20-30% of total needs. So
right,
probably.
But nuclear is renewable and safe, and it runs for 50 years or 100 years. I mean, what are we thinking? Start the plants up, right? And I know people will listen to this and they'll disagree and all of that, but I would say this about nuclear is that if you go back, 40 and 50 years and all the protests and shut down nuclear plants, stop building them. We stopped building them in the United States and instead built coal plants. Was that dumb? Of course, we know in hindsight it was dumb. So the people who protested against nuclear meant well, but did not understand the secondary effect. The secondary effect is demand will continue to increase and it will be met. And at the time it got met with coal.
Yeah.
And that's not good. And today it's being met with natural gas, a little bit better, but still a huge CO2 generator. You want no CO2? Turn on the nuclear plant. Just don't turn them off. These are brilliant pieces of engineering. Anyway, I don't want to get on the soapbox, but I did.
I love the fact that we are touching on a lot of different topics and to, you know, see your focused view on each of them. Now, one question that I was thinking while you were talking is, have you thought about or touched in your book the concept of I don't know how to frame it, but like insight into a multitude of areas, such as you yourself are a conductor, a musician, producer, innovator, you know, all of these things, and you have expertise in all of these areas. So is there an extrapolation of capabilities and skills from one area to the other areas that allow you to innovate?
Yeah, we certainly find, I'm on the board of Rochester Institute of Technology, and we have about 3,000 performing arts scholars there. And it's not a performing arts school, but we allow them to do their performing arts, whatever that is, in addition to their mostly engineering degrees. So we find that engineers, specifically, most of them play an instrument or perform or sing or dance or whatever. So there is this overlap, and maybe it's the math of engineering or the thinking of engineering. There is this left brain, right brain thing that does happen with a lot of people. And so I'm certainly not the first engineer that happens to have, you know, a music sideline, right? I'm probably the billionth engineer that does that. So that's kind of a fascinating thing, I think. Well, look, and then there's, you know, I didn't invent the term. It's kind of a Alon thing about being a polymath, whatever that is. Polymath means, you know, you somehow appear to have expertise in almost any field. The truth is that isn't true at all. What is true is I'm curious about every field, and I'm curious enough to go learn it. And then I'm curious enough to dig into one piece of that to be really, really good at one piece that nobody else has bothered to be good at. So in the midst of all of my tech patents, I invented some building materials like soundproof drywall called QuietRock. And that is $1 billion market today. It is a huge market, and it did very well. And it turns out all I was doing was trying to solve a problem in hotel rooms and condominiums and townhomes and things like that, where you could hear the next door neighbor. You could hear who was in the room next door. And I said, I should be able to stop sound coming through that wall without having to build a concrete wall, right? A cement wall. And I did, but I did tons of research on a technique called constrained layer damping. And constrained layer damping in bridges, in disk drives, converts vibrational energy into heat energy, very little heat, and you can't hear heat. So conservation of energy says it doesn't just dissipate, it goes somewhere, right? So if I could convert those vibrations coming from one side, that's acoustic energy, into heat, which you can't hear, I will have reduced the amount of vibrating that comes to me, right? It's that simple. And then you have to get into the math and then the physics and then the chemistry of how one would build something like that. And that's exactly what we did. And I got to invent soundproof drywall. This is in the, let's see, that's around 2002 or 2003. And it just took off, and it became this huge business. And everyone uses QuietRock. Everyone I talk to, you know, we built a home, we put QuietRock over here in the bedroom, we put it in the studio, we put it, you know, I have it in our home here. So it became this synonymous thing with building. And yet when I first went to do it, I said, I pulled in some drywall subcontractors, and said, I know you're buying, you know, drywall at $5, $8, $10 a sheet. This is going to be $50 a sheet. Oh, we'll never buy it. Okay, but hang on, you're getting sued for noise, and you know, well, we'll never buy this. It's 5 times more expensive. We'll never buy it. Well, it didn't matter. The architects ended up designing it in for the builders, and the builders demanded that they buy it and put it up, and they did that because they didn't want to be sued for sound coming through the walls anymore. So the driver, you know, the interesting, like nobody actually cared about the human experience. What they cared about is I don't want to be sued anymore. So there was a pain point, and the pain point was so high, so large, that you could solve it, and it was going to be more expensive, but it was the cheapest way to solve the problem compared to getting sued for millions of dollars. And so it drove the and now every drywall subcontractor has put up QuietRock, and if it's spec, they just buy it and they upcharge, and it just is what it is. But again, if you thought the end customer was the drywall subcontractor, you missed the market. They buy the cheapest thing that they can buy that meets the spec, because that's how they make their money. Once it was specified and it could not be taken out, well, then it is what it is, right? Then you had to buy what you had to buy and do it. So, yeah, I got to invent that and worked on high R value windows. I got to retrofit the Empire State Building, every window, the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, so on top of multivariate reverse auctions and the assistant and voice AI and the smart cellular data phone and a whole variety of other things I got to be first in. Sometimes it's the construction products that live on as well. So, so it's funny.
Are you still managing these companies, or have you sold the patents or the?
No, sold those. Patents got sold off. I mean, the patents for voice AI, there's probably a dozen or so, got sold to a company called Intellectual Ventures, and Intellectual Ventures made billions of dollars on those patents. Actually did quite well, is what I'm told. Nathan Myhrvold runs that company. He's the former CTO of Microsoft, who I knew, and he knew about the patents, and he was smart enough to buy them for a lot less than he ended up licensing them for. But no, I'm running two companies: an AI company called AppVance and a cybersecurity company called Token Core.
Back to AI for a moment. How much do you think AI would help people come faster to innovations if you give them the right prompts and create the right materials?
How fast will they improve innovation? You're talking about workers in a company?
Do you think that AI would increase the speed of innovation overall?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question, because I can do in code now what used to take weeks, I can do in an hour or two, right? There's no comparison that you can get out more features, more innovation. Now, what transformers, LLMs, aren't good at is inventing new things, because it only learned from humans. And so it can put those things together, but it's not going to invent some brand new science, at least not so far. I think we're going to need different models for that. But it's allowing every company who's AI first to go way faster, 10 times faster. And we want to. And so the lesson towards larger companies that are older is, if you're not AI, if your people aren't turning to AI first and 5 times an hour, you are way behind. When I say that in my keynotes, people look at me and go, I didn't use it 5 times last month. I said, yeah, your competitor did. Where's that leave you? I didn't think about it that way. Okay, well, fine. You go to Word first. You go to Excel first. You go to PowerPoint first. I don't do that. I go to AI first and decide, what am I trying to do? What am I trying to accomplish? Today, and only in the last few months, I can create 100-slide PowerPoint presentation 100% with AI. I never touch PowerPoint. I put it in PowerPoint at the end.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to edit a slide, I don't edit it. I tell AI, change this slide, and it changes it for me. That is changing the entire dynamic of how we actually interact with these tools. I don't need to know, what thing do I do on the drop down to erase and move, change the font. I don't have to do that. Change the font to this, make it bolder. I want a black background. I want it in white. Boom, there it is. I don't worry about all of those details anymore. And it turns out nobody cared about those details once they saw my presentation. All they wanted was the presentation. They didn't care how I got there. So the fact I'm using AI to create every slide, now it's my thinking. It's, here's what I want to say. Now go say it, right?
Yeah, right. When I was talking about innovation, I actually didn't mean specifically anything related to software coding. I'm even thinking about the type of innovation that your QuietRock is, the types of materials that you can put together, because this information is available about chemistry, about interaction, so you can if you were to solve a certain problem, you can interact with AI and give it the right
Yes,
prompt to create a material or a
no
solution.
question.
Yeah.
If I were inventing QuietRock today, it would have not taken me, the 2 years to get it right or 3 years to get it right. Because it would have come back and said, I've read all the patents in and around the field, which were not related to construction materials. They were related to other things. And here's how you might extrapolate the work that was done on bridges to construction materials, right? It would have done that for me. In those days, I had to do it manually. I had to read everything, do the math, try to construct a scenario where it would work with something, with drywall, with sheetrock, et cetera. And we did, but it was really by hand and by experiment, thousands of experiments. And then, try to come up with math models for these things. So we did all that. Today, AI would have done that for me. Certainly would have saved us years, right? But you would have had to be smart enough to know and curious enough to ask those questions.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Got to be curious enough to ask the right questions.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Kevin, again, when is your book coming out and what can we learn from it, other than the words joy and AI and how you got to where you're at?
Well, look, the Joy Success Cycle comes out in the fall 2026. It's already at the printer, so that's good. And it's a game changer. The people. So I've been giving that keynote for many years, and the people I've given that keynote to, those employees, I get a call back a week or two later that it changed their lives. They're more successful. They're happier. They are accomplishing more. It taught them when to get things out of their lives that don't work. I mean, it gave them permission to act in a whole different way. And people who take it seriously, which won't be everyone, it will change your life. Your mind will be open to find these pain points and to see solutions that you weren't open to before. Because before, all you were doing was complaining all day. And now, you have no complaints. Every day is a joyous day. Every task is a joyous task. As I like to say, even if I have to fire someone, there can be joy in that. Why? It wasn't working out for them and it wasn't working out for us, and they're going to be in a better position 3 months from now. It hurts right now, but everyone's going to be happier 3 months from now. You have to approach it like that. You can find something joyful in all these things. That's what's interesting. So it's going to change people's lives, and as my keynotes have, I'm hopeful that many people read the book and that it changes. And if I change one life, I've won. It's great.
On your website, I read that you have a digital twin where people can ask you questions.
Yes, it is on my website. There's a digital twin and you can talk to it. Yes. And it'll talk in my voice if you use the audio version.
Okay, so your book is coming out in November, but we are a few months before that. If we want to interact with what's in the book, will we be able to do this with your digital twin?
Yes, actually, the digital twin knows the book. So you can do that with a digital twin. You can also go, that's the kevinsurace.com website. There's another website I have where you can sign up for my newsletter. That's joysuccesscycle.com. And so you can sign up for my newsletter and get some tidbits from the book and such. So, we're trying to service as many people as we can.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciated this conversation. It was a lot of fun and it gave me joy.
There you go. Start with that. And no more complaints the rest of the day.
I am not the one to complain usually, not even in my head. You'd be surprised.
I'm happy to hear that.
I have a very strong autocorrect.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.